What is up you guys, Jory here and welcome back to a new video. I'm going to be showing you how you can install and set up your Fedora distribution for gaming and for everyday use. So I'll be showing you not only the installation process for installing Fedora, but I'll also show you how you can configure your DNF, which we'll talk later in the video, and I'll also show you how to enable RPM Fusion repositories so that you can install third-party applications. In addition, I'll also show you which software you need to use for gaming, so something like Steam, Portal, Serial Games Launcher, and also show you how to configure these applications, for example, how to enable Go Overlay or how to enable gamescope. So there's a lot to uncover in this video, so without wasting your time, let's get into it. In order to get the Fedora ISO file, what we need to do is to open our browser or any browser you use, and then you want to go on this website, which is fedoraproject.org. For this tutorial, I'm going to install the latest release, which is Fedora 40. If you want to, you can also install the Fedora 41 beta. However, you may run into certain bugs, or you may run into issues when you install Fedora 41. So for the purposes of this tutorial, I'm going to be using Fedora 40. So to get the ISO file, just click here, and then you want to click on the Fedora workstation, as most of you are probably using a PC or a laptop. So click here, it says download now. If you're using Intel or AMD, then you want to download this ISO file. If you're using any other system that does not have Intel AMD, then you want to download one of these. But for this tutorial, I'm going to be downloading the x86-64 for Intel and AMD. The same thing will apply to the Fedora Media Writer. What this does is to allow us to flash the ISO file to our media storage, like a USB or micro SD card or whatever storage. So this is something that we'll also need. If you're running a Windows system, then obviously download this. If you're on Mac, download this, and if you're on Linux, download this version as well. So you want to open Fedora Media Writer, as I already have it installed. So this is what we'll be using to flash our ISO file to our USB or any other storage you have basically. So you want to click here where it says select my ISO file, then click next, and the USB drive that I'll be using is a generic storage device. This is not a USB, this is actually my micro SD card, which is plugged into my PC. You can use whatever USB drive you have, as long as you have enough space, of course. Something like 16 gigs is fine. It will flash the ISO to your USB just fine. So 16 gigs or even 8 gigs is enough. So yeah, you want to select the USB drive, and then you want to select the Fedora ISO file, then you want to click select, and yeah, once you do, then you want to click right and let it do its thing. And yeah, the rest is pretty much straightforward. You want to make sure that you have your USB drive plugged in your system, and what you need to do at this point is to boot into your BIOS settings. So since I'm using an Asus motherboard, I'm going to continuously press F2 to get to the BIOS settings. If you're using a different motherboard manufacturer, then you might want to do a bit of research on, like, on how to get into the BIOS. There are two settings that we're going to change in the BIOS, and this can be a personal preference thing, or it might get a bit controversial. Those settings are Secure Boot and CSM. In my opinion, I recommend you enable Secure Boot if you want an extra layer of security, and disabling CSM, which allows you to use the UEFI booting instead of the legacy BIOS. Fedora supports Secure Boot, so you're good to go. I know that there are going to be a lot of powerhouse Linux users who will not agree here, which is completely understandable, as some argue that enabling Secure Boot has major drawbacks, like compatibility issues with bootloaders that are not signed properly with an approval key, of course, or loss of user control, which is an important core value in the Linux community. Hence, disabling it allows you to have more user control and better compatibility. This can get a bit too technical, like which distros even support it, as not all of them do, but at the end, enabling or disabling secure boot for this tutorial will be personal preference. With that, all you need to do is to find the live media where we flashed Fedora into the USB. So once you do, you can select that and you're good to go. Alright, so you should be able to see something like this. If you do, that's a good thing. So all you need to do is to press enter so that we can get into this live media and start the Fedora workstation, or it will automatically execute it within the next 10 seconds, so you can pretty much let it do its thing. And yeah, you should be able to see this menu, which basically welcomes you. So all you need to do is to install Fedora, or if you want to make sure that everything is working fine before you install it. So if you want to make sure that your network is working, or if you want to make sure that other devices connected to your PC is working fine, you can also do that. But yeah, pretty much good to go. And yeah, select your language. In this case, I'm just simply going to pick English, then hit continue. Then you want to go to the installation destination, and then you want to select the storage where you want your Fedora to be installed into. So if you have like multiple storage devices connected, just make sure you click the correct one where you want to install Fedora. And yeah, once you do, you're good to go. Now obviously bear in mind that I am running this on a virtual machine just to show you how you can install Fedora. Now when you select your storage drive, there is a likely chance that it will pop up a menu saying that you do not have enough storage to install Fedora, and all you need to do is to pretty much wipe all of the data that's stored. So all you need to do is to select the storage device, and then when you click done, it will show you an option saying that you do not have enough storage space or whatever, and then you want to click on the option where it allows you to wipe out all of the data that's stored. And once you do, you click done, and now you can begin the installation process. So as you can see, it's done the installation process. So what you want to do is to finish installation. Yeah, as you can see, we are now pretty much into our Fedora system. So for privacy, if you don't want location services enabled, just disable it, and also the automatic problem reporting. If you want to report problems, then that's pretty much up to you. If you don't want to, you can also disable this as well. Then click next. And this is very important, so you want to make sure you enable third-party repositories, and click next. And this is where you can enter your full name and username. So I'm just going to type jewelry for the purposes of this tutorial, and then you want to click next. And for the password, I'm going to keep it simple. And yeah, if you have reached this far, then congratulations, you have your Fedora Linux system up and running. We have updates that we need to install. So this is one of the first things you're going to have to do when you install a Linux distribution. You always need to install updates. You can go to the software store where you download these updates, or you can use the terminal. So I'm going to open the terminal, and this is another alternative for downloading updates. For this tutorial, I am not going to use the terminal. Instead, I'm going to use the software store where the updates appeared. Just to make it easier for you to understand, all you need to do is to click this button which says restart and update, and it's going to update your system. In case you installed your packages, like specifically your updates through the terminal, you may notice that DNF is a little bit slow. That is because Fedora is a notorious distro for being slow, especially with the DNF, which is like your package manager. So to make it download packages a little bit faster, we're going to simply open the terminal. And don't worry, we are not going to do anything hackerish. We're just going to paste a couple of commands through DNF configuration. So what we're simply going to do is we're going to type sudo nano etc and then DNF and then DNF config. Then you want to type your password. Then you want to simply go down. Then we're going to add here added for speed. So you want to add a hashtag and then add it for speed. Then I will leave these commands in the description. So you want to basically paste these and then I'll explain what each of these do. So the first command simply searches for the fastest mirror so that it can download packages a little bit faster. Now at first it may try to look for the fastest mirror, so it might be slow at first, but with time it will get it will eventually download packages a little bit faster. So this is the first command. The second command will be personal preference. This is basically how many packages it can download. So for me, since I have a gigabit connection, I set it to 10. If you have something lower than that, you can set 5, but for me I basically have 10. The third command is also going to be personal preference. If you come from Arch or Debian based systems, where when you install updates or any package through the terminal, it usually asks you if you want to allow it basically asks you, hey, do you want to download this package or these updates? And on those systems the default is always yes, so all you need to do is to basically hit enter. On Fedora the default type is set to no, so as you can see for me it's set to true. This is because I'm simply used to downloading stuff without actually having to confirm every time I hit Y, which is yes, on my system. So this will be personal preference. If you want to check what you're downloading before you hit Y and then enter, then you might want to remove this command. But if you're coming from Arch based systems or Debian based systems and you're used to that, then you may want to set this to true. And finally, the last command basically caches out downloaded packages or updates so that DNF can basically download stuff as quickly as possible. With that being said, we are basically done. So to save this, all you want to do is to hit Ctrl O and then enter and then Ctrl X, and you are pretty much done. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to enable RPM Fusion. Before the installation, I did show you that you should enable RPM Fusion, but the problem is Fedora doesn't show every software that's available through the software store. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to this website, which is rpmfusion.org, and we are going to install free and non-free repositories so that you can have more variety software available in your software store. Before we start installing the repositories, make sure you go to your software store, go to preferences, and then make sure this option is disabled. What this does is it basically acts as a content filter to show software that is approved and tested by Fedora, which is something we don't want, because we also want non-free software to be also shown. So make sure you have this disabled. So with that, we are ready to install free and non-free repositories. Now click on whatever Fedora version you have. If you are running Fedora 41 for this tutorial, that's also completely fine. For me, I'm running Fedora 40, so I'm going to click this link, and it's going to download the RPM Fusion, which is the RPM folder for this distribution. So I'm gonna hit save, and then I'm going to basically install this. And as you can see, I already installed it. So you want to basically click install, and you are pretty much good to go. The same thing will apply for non-free repositories, so I'm going to do the same procedure. I'm going to click on my version, which is Fedora 40, then hit save, and then I'm going to pretty much open the software store, and as you can see, I already installed it. So basically install this, and yeah, once you do, you should have more a variety of software that you can install through the software store. Lastly, let's talk a bit about GPU drives. So for AMD, you're pretty much good to go. AMD works right out of the box with no issues. And from my experience installing different distributions like Ubuntu, Linux Mint, and even Fedora, my AMD GPU worked right out the box with no issues. So if you're like running AMD, you're pretty much good to go. You don't have to install any GPU drives. But if you're running NVIDIA, then I will leave some YouTube links in the description where you can install your NVIDIA drive. But it's relatively simple. It's not that complicated. You just need to enter like a couple of commands through the terminal, and once you do, you like restart your Linux distribution, and then you're pretty much good to go. But with that being said, if you have NVIDIA installed in your Linux system, then you're good to go. So this is the part that most of you are waiting for, and that is gaming. So in this process, I'm going to show you how I would game on Linux, specifically how I would configure my game so that they can run as smooth as possible. So first, make sure you download software like Steam, Bottles, Lutris, Hero Games Launcher. If you also have like if you run emulation, so something like PSX2, make sure that you also have it installed. As you can see, it's right here. And if you have a PlayStation 3 emulator, you can also install that as well. If you're a person that also likes to overclock GPUs, so for AMD, make sure you have Corectrl installed. This is a really good software for overclocking AMD GPUs. For NVIDIA, I think it's called Green with Envy, I believe. Exactly. So Green with Envy, this is for AMD, for NVIDIA GPUs. So if you have an NVIDIA GPU, make sure you also have this installed as well. Another important software we'll also need is Go Overlay, which is a simple graphical UI to help manage certain overlays. So it's simply an overlay which you can use to show statistics on your CPU, GPU, what like wine version you're running, and how many gigabits of like VRAM you have in your GPU basically. So this is something we'll also need so that when you play your game, it shows symbol statistics. It also has other options as well. So if I open it right now, you can use it for performance as well, which is also really good. So if you want to set a limit for a specific game, you want to set 60, you can do that. So if you want to set 165, you can also do that as well. And there are other options as well. So if you want to specifically name your GPU, you can do that here as well. And for the CPU, you can also show the VRAM, the core frequency, and all that. So there are a lot of options you can do to customize Go Overlay, and there's even a log folder as well. So that's also very neat. So this is something we'll also need, which is very important. We are going to start with Steam. So once you have all of your games installed, what you're going to do is you're going to go to the Steam icon and then go to settings. Then we're going to go to download. So make sure that you have shader pre-caching disabled. What this basically does is when you play a game, it will download shaders from the Steam server, which may hinder a lot of performance issues. When you play games on Linux, you don't need this option anymore, so most games will run just fine. So make sure you have this disabled, which is very important. And then for compatibility, this is going to be personal preference. For me, I'm running the latest version, which is 9.0-3. If you want to run Proton Experimental, that's also fine. But if you notice you're running into certain bugs or issues when using Proton Experimental, then just use the stable version. Another thing I forgot to mention, make sure that you have these settings enabled so that when you play a game that's not supported on Linux, it will force a compatibility like layer so that, you know, when you play a Windows game that's not supported on Linux, it's still going to allow you to play the game. So make sure you have these enabled. So with that, you are almost done. You want to apply this to all of your games you have, but you want to go to properties and then you want to make sure you add this command. So what this command basically does is when you launch a game, Mangohud, which is the overlay that we talked about, will appear in all of your games, basically going to show statistics of, you know, your CPU, GPU, and all of that stuff. So you want to copy this command and apply it to like all of your games. Then yeah, with that being said, you are pretty much done and you can play all of your Steam games. On Lutris, this is also relatively straightforward. If you want to add locally installed games, which is the games that you are seeing right now, all you want to do is to click here, and then you want to manually configure whether it's a Windows game, a Steam game, or even like an emulator and all that. And then you want to follow through these steps and you're pretty much good to go. If you have other games outside from Lutris, so if you have games from GOG, Epic Games, or whatever source, all you want to do is to, in this case, I'm going to click on Ubisoft, then I'll click OK. So it's giving me options on which wine version to install. So I'm going to basically install the latest, which is this one right here. So I'm going to click install, and then I'm going to basically click continue, and then I'm going to install whatever it needs to install. And as you can see, it's pretty much done. So I'm going to click launch and it should launch Ubisoft Connect. And as you can see, Ubisoft is working just fine. Well, if you even want to run a PlayStation 2 emulator, you can do that. So I'm going to show you how. And as you can see, I already have a couple of games that I can try to run. So I'm going to try to run Auto Modelista. So I'm going to run the game. And as you can see, the game is also running just fine. Of course, I don't have my controller plugged in, so this is just me showing you that the games that I play work on Linux just fine with no issues. So there are a lot of things you can do on Lutris to make your games running as smooth as possible. When it comes to Heroic Games Launcher, it is also relatively straightforward. First of all, you go to your stores and wherever your games are. So if your games are from Epic Games Launcher or GOG or even Prime Gaming, then you want to select your source, and once you log into account, then you download pretty much all of your games. And once you download all of your games, they're going to appear in this list. So let's try to configure Genshin Impact. Once you install Genshin Impact, for example, and once everything's working fine, you can actually click on the game and then you can go to settings. In here, you can adjust the wine version. So if you're having a certain problem with the wine version, let's say you're having problems with Proton GE, which is a 9-13, then you can switch to another Proton version, or you can switch to a wine version, for example. Or you can go to these options right here if you want to enable something like FSR, which helps to boost frame rate by upscaling lower resolutions. You can also use this option as well. Or if you want to limit your FPS, so if you want to limit to 60, you can do that. All you need to do is to like check this box and then you can type 60 and it's going to be capped at 60. If you go to other options, you can enable Mangohud so that when you launch Genshin Impact, Mangohud, which is the overlay, is going to appear in the game so that you can see how your PC is performing when it comes to, you know, playing games like Genshin Impact or any other game. Fero game mode is also a necessity. It does help to boost a little bit of FPS so that when you launch your game, it's always in game mode. and your PC is going to prioritize the game itself. In addition, you can go to the settings, or specifically you can go to the wine manager. My bad. If you want to download the latest wine version, like if you want to download like 1GE latest, then you can do that as well, so that you can try to launch games if you're having like a problem with a certain wine version that's not working, or if you're experiencing bugs or issues. Or you can try Proton GE, which is what I recommend mostly. I never have issues when using Proton GE. Most games that I have that I run with the Proton GE always seem to run way much better than Wine. So yeah, that's what I recommend. It seems like there is this, like the latest Wine version, which is Proton GE 9-16, so I'm going to install that. Now, when you play games through Hero Games Launcher, you might have two problems, or you may encounter two problems. The first one is when you take Mangohud and you try to launch the game, it might show an error saying something like Mangohud cannot be found, you need to add the path to it. Or if you want to use gamescope, which is similar to AMD's FSR, or you might get an error basically saying that, hey, gamescope cannot be found, you need to add a path to it. You might also get this issue if you are trying to run a game on Lutris. If I open Lutris now, let's say I want to play a game something like Blur, and if you go to the system options, then you might notice that Mangohud cannot be togged on for some reason. Or if you try to open bottles, which I'm going to open it as well, and let's say I want to play a game like PSX, which is a PlayStation 1 emulator. If I go to settings, then you might notice that gamescope cannot seem to be togged on. Or if I go to this option here where I want to enable Mangohud, as you can see, it cannot be togged on. So the reason why is because Hero Games Launcher in this instance only has the Flatpak version, and most of you, I'm pretty sure, know what Flatpak applications are. These are designed to run for security reasons, but the only problem to Flatpak applications is that they do not have access to all of the stuff, or like it cannot see certain files on your computer, which from a security standpoint is understandable. But if you want to, in this case, run a game like Genshin Impact using Mangohud, it's not going to work because it's not allowed to see certain files outside of the Flatpak, or like outside of its sandbox. A sandbox cannot see all of it, or like all of its files outside of it. So to fix this issue, what we want to do is we want to open the terminal. I'm going to leave these commands in the description, of course. So one of the first things we're going to do is we're going to install the Flatpak version of Mangohud. And to do that, simply paste this in your terminal, then hit enter. Now, as you can see, there are 4 versions of it, so you want to select the one that has, or that is like the latest version basically. So I'm going to select 1 in this case, and then you want to proceed with the installation. Now that we have the Mangohud version of Flatpak installed, the next thing we're going to do is we are going to install gamescope, of course. So you want to paste this in your terminal. This is obviously the Flatpak version of it, so you want to hit enter. And then you want to select the latest version, so I'm going to select 3. I believe 3 is the latest version. And then you want to proceed this, and then you are pretty much done. So the next thing we're going to do is we want to make sure that our config file for Mangohud, which is embedded into GoOverlay, override these games that we're having problems with, if that makes sense. So we want our config file to be able to be available to Portal's, Lutris, and Hero Games Launcher. So to do that, what you want to do is you want to copy paste this command. This will override the config file of your Mangohud so that Portal's, Lutris, and Hero Games Launcher can see your config file. So you want to hit enter, and then you're done. And once you reboot your system, then you want to open Hero Games Launcher, and if you try to launch Genshin, which I'm going to launch the game right now, as you can see, Genshin Impact is working fine with our Mangohud config file working. So as you can see, the Mangohud is actually working. The same thing will apply to Lutris. So if I launch something like Quake 3, as you can see, the Mangohud overlay is actually working, which is good. So this will fix your issues in case if you run into an issue where for some reason Heroic Games Launcher is showing you this error where it says Mangohud or gamescope cannot be found in your system, or vice versa on Lutris or Portals. So hopefully this will fix your issues. And then lastly, Corectrl, which is a powerful tool for overclocking GPUs. I'm going to open it and I'm going to show you how it works, but it's relatively simple. So you have your own profile, which is the default. You can add another one if you want to, and you can give it a name, but I'm not going to do that. But we go to the default version. As you can see, there are a few options you can do. I think it depends on the GPU. So for performance mode, you can set it to fixed or advanced, and you can set the power limit and then the power profile. So it's a very powerful tool. And the ventilation, you can also adjust this to your liking as well. Same thing will apply to your CPU, although for me it's really limited. I can only set it to custom mode, do not control, but yeah, it's a very powerful tool. And like I said, this will depend on your CPU. You might have more settings to customize, or you might have less, but nonetheless, it's a very powerful tool. I also recommend you use. And yeah, with that being said, that's pretty much it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, then leave them in the comments. You can also join my Discord server if you need any assistance. But with that, it's your boy Jewelry. Thanks for watching this video, and I am signing out.